Today we're going to be doing something that I've wanted to do for a really long time, but just kind of never have made happen. And that is taking all of the internal components and hardware of Planetary Freecoaster hubs and putting all of this together on an axle without a hub shell, and then putting it onto the bike with the chain and everything on it, just to kind of see if we can demonstrate how this thing actually works disassembled. I have no idea if it's going to work or not. This is kind of just an experiment, and it's going to be a fun one. So the first thing that we kind of need to do is, I suppose, put everything together onto the axle. So we have all the hardware. I found out that it's not a video if you don't drop something, and that you do need the bearings on the axle to do this. Because I went to kind of mock it up there for a second, and it didn't seem like it was going to work without them. Oh my goodness, I can't get the bearing on there. Well, I got the drive side bearing on, but I can't get the non-drive side one on. Well, anyways, I'll just put the non-drive side jam nut on there, and then between... Really? Okay, fine. It was fine. So then there's that. Now we can take our clutch, not our driver, our clutch, and we slide that onto the axle, which goes against the bearing in the actual thing here. Let's get a better angle and focus. Then we take our driver with everything there, and we have that all set up. Now we can put our drive side jam nut on. And the only reason that I'm even really doing this is that I have all of this sitting out by itself now after replacing the driver, drive side jam nut, and axle on the hub that I'm riding with the titanium components from Wheelhouse. So shout out to them for helping make this happen as well. So there we go. All of those components are on. Now we need a washer and an axle nut, and then another washer and axle nut. So then we'll be able to just put this onto the bike and hopefully see how things work all put together. Because now we can see the internal components and how they're working, but we have to take this rear wheel off of this bike to do that. So let's go ahead and get the rear wheel off. I'll refocus here, and we'll be back in 1 second. There we go. So let's move a bit closer in here to take our assembly here and put it onto the frame. So there's that. Take our chain, put it on here, put it onto the sprocket. Now we really just need to pull this back, and we should be solid. So now we're to the point where we can actually pedal this thing to see how it would be working. And what you can see is that pedaling this thing forward and moving the pawls forward is not lifting them at all, actually. And we can see that this part of the clutch is actually rotating the opposite way of the driver itself, and that is because of the planetary gearing. But what happens if we pretend like this is our wheel and we hold it in place? We can see that the pawls are lifted, and if this was actually the hub shell, this would be allowing it to drive forward. So if you look closely, these are the ramps that lift the pawls. So when we pedal forward, the pawls hit those ramps and they lift up. And so basically, let's simulate the hub coasting forward, which would be this part rotating forward just like this. And we can see that by doing that, we are in turn rotating those ramps into the pawl, and that is what is lifting it in order to make the hub engage. So I'm trying my best. It's pretty hard to get this to rotate, but you can see there, that's what's happening. Now, if we were going to simulate a fakie, which would be, okay, we're riding forward. Now all of a sudden we've done a 180 and it goes backwards. Boom, you see that ramp backs off and instantly drops the pawl. So boom, dropped. And when you think about it, it's really amazing that it's even possible to have all of this happen quick enough to completely disengage a BMX hub and become a free coaster from being a cassette that instantaneously. These pawls, if they don't drop quick enough, your hub's not going to disengage. It's just gonna be a cassette until you start to backpedal enough to make it disengage. And yes, sometimes there are certain instances where that can happen. For example, if you're doing a trick where your back wheel is completely stopped and then it hits, there might not be enough time there, but the fact that this works 99% out of the time and those pawls are able to drop the way that they need to is incredible. So yeah, we're pedaling forward and the pawls are engaging, they tighten in, and the only gap that you might feel is the gap from pedaling to lifting the pawl up before it actually starts rotating. So then we stop pedaling and the hub keeps moving forward. Let's get in a better position to be able to see. Hub keeps moving forward, and then yeah, we let off and we do a fakie and boom, everything drops the way that it's supposed to. Wheel is rotating, and when it's rotating like this, it's pushing this ramp forward away from the pawls as much as possible. See, watch. If we go like this and we act like we're pedaling, it pulls it back towards that pawl. But then as soon as that hub is moving backwards, it is constant pressure to keep that ramp from engaging the pawls. And that right there is why you're able to moonwalk with these hubs, which is when you're pedaling forward as you're faking backwards. So let's try and demonstrate what actually happens whenever we're doing that moonwalking motion. So let's pretend we're going backwards, our hub is rotating backwards. That's demonstrated by this part of the clutch rotating backwards because it is fixed to the hub shell whenever it's installed. And then we start pedaling forward while we're faking. And as you can see, what happens when we do that is that the pawl almost chases that ramp down. And if we were to pedal faster than what we were going backwards, it probably would catch up. I'm not coordinated enough to make that happen, but you can see why the moonwalk works. It's because we're coasting backwards, not pedaling backwards. We're coasting backwards and we pedal, and that ramp is able to just continuously move away from the pawl. So then we turn our fakie around and our hub is moving forward again, and it engages and goes back into cassette mode. How cool is that? So this is our motion pedaling. We end up faking, boom, drops it. We can pedal forward while we're faking because the ramps run away from the pawls. And then we turn it back around. Hub shell moves forward again, engages our pawls and lifts them to put this thing back into cassette mode, and pedaling it while it's moving forward just keeps those pawls engaged. So yeah, that's how the internals of the Planetary Freecoaster hubs actually work. I've done videos like this before and kind of explained it with everything assembled outside of the hub, but I've never put it on a bike like this, so it was a totally new way to do this experiment and just see the way these internals work, and it's really, really cool. I'm nerding out on it because it's fun to just see the intricacies and the way that these things work together. So I hope that you guys enjoyed this one as much as I did. I had a blast doing this just now, even though I was pretty spot on in my mind on how this actually worked, and everything was exactly the way I thought it was still awesome to see it happening in front of my eyes. So with that being said, this is really cool, and thank you for watching it. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Hopefully we'll see you tomorrow for another one. Goodbye.